you know what? You knew Jesse Marsh's Canada side were going to play high press. It's in Jesse's DNA with Red Bull's philosophy. He said, okay, we're going to high press, but you know what? We're going to wait for that high press. We're not just going to run crazy and give you all these
calculated.
lanes. It was very calculated. Yunus Musah and Johnny Cardoso were extremely poor in the day. And Yunus Musah gave up a bunch of balls in his own defensive third, in the middle third, that didn't necessarily result in a goal. Johnny Cardoso, however, gave that ball what we saw, and then it resulted in Schaffelberg's goal to start the game. Ream and Richards were very poor. Ream held on to the ball for way too long, and Canada said, okay, we'll allow you to sit on the ball. Well, you wait. Next thing you know, we take away all your options, and it's a giveaway. And he gives away the second goal, and that's where Jonathan David pickpockets him, and he ends up scoring. You looking at this game, and I'd say 90% of the players were extremely poor. I'd say Malik Tillman, who played 62 minutes, was one of the bright spots. And to say it's a bright spot is.
Were you surprised to see him in the starting 11?
I was surprised because he hasn't done it for the U.S. Men's National Team. Now he has played consistently at the club level and he's done well, but it's PSV and they roll over everybody. But ultimately, he looked the best of that starting 11. And then Loon in the second half played much better
very
than he did in the first half. But Joe Scally, again, 77 touches. I'd say 75 of them were backwards.
What I'm about to say maybe doesn't hold as much water because we're in a caretaker moment again. We're in an interim moment. I forgot who it was that tweeted out that 50% of the matches since the World Cup have been under interim managers for the U.S. Men's National Team, which is an issue that clearly needs to be resolved.
50%?
50% of the matches since the World Cup have been under interim manager. Obviously, B.J. Callahan, and now this. That for what I'm looking at, if we don't have, as a nation, if we don't have Serginho Dest fit, if we don't have Tyler Adams fit, and you don't have Anthony Robbins or Jedi Robinson in the match, if you don't have those three, you cannot play the style that is trying to be played. It's seemingly you can't overrun the midfield, you can't create the space you want, you can't play out of the back. And maybe it's because you're in an interim manager where you're not going to sit there now and make tactical changes. I'll let you explain that to me.
Okay.
It seems like we're in this holding pattern where it makes us look even worse than we actually can potentially play.
And you're spot on. So one, the head coach for this game, Mickey Varas, he's in over his head. He doesn't have the quality to coach this group yet. That's one. So then he's taking the same tactics in which he learned from Greg Berhalter and trying to implement them, and maybe he makes some little twists and make little changes here and there. But ultimately, it's not good enough. So he's not good enough. The quality on the pitch is not good enough. And then the intensity, all the intangibles that you're supposed to have that you don't need teaching. You're playing for America. You're playing on American soil against Canada, against a coach who wanted to be the U.S. Men's National Team head coach, didn't get the job, and then is talking trash about these same players, saying, hey, guess what? You guys are all hypocrites. You said you didn't want me because you wanted to stick with Greg because you got X, Y, Z, and then next thing you know, things didn't go your way, and now Greg's got to go. You guys are hypocrites. Before the game, and you still don't come out with that fire against Canada, who's kind of been chipping away at you in World Cup qualifying. They had the better of you. You came back in the Nations League. You said, hey, we're the top dogs. You win 2-0. And now Canada comes back with Jesse Marsh at the helm and beats you handily at home. They absolutely played us off the park. And it's not that they played beautiful football, but they put a lot of pressure on us, and we had no answers. So it was so ugly. It was underwhelming. The energy was bad. Me at home watching this game with my kids, I was hurt. I was disappointed. It was all the above because you're sitting there and you're saying, I know these guys can give more.
So much
more. I know
more.
they can give. Now, the coaching is as bad as it is. You're not making the right adjustments. And that was to be expected. But at the bare minimum, if you give 100% and the commitment's there, this Canada team is not good enough to beat you.
How much of this, though, and that performance that you're alluding to of not giving enough because we know that they are capable, how much is that down to the fact that we are in this weird interim limbo stage?
Yeah, it's a purgatory.
Well, we asked
We had
Are they gonna-
purgatory with before the Nations League.
It's strange because this is a friendly, so that there's not like these
lot on the line.
huge implications.
So we
was-
asked this
there
game
was more on the line than a typical
but we
friendly
said
because
this
of the
game was more
storyline.
important to Jesse Marsh in Canada.
Yeah.
We said that last
than it
week.
was for the
Yes.
U.S.
Absolutely.
And a win would mean more for Canada
Yes.
than it would for the U.S. Having said that, not like it's an excuse or anything, we asked on this show about a week ago, are they going to take this camp seriously? And given all the bulletin board material, given the personality or the lack of personality in their performance on Saturday, and the way that the coaching was done, the way that the players came out, excuse me, it felt like it wasn't serious. It felt like this wasn't at the height of a national team, the way that this was all taken on head first. They didn't tackle it. The whole assignment of the weekend, like that it wasn't national team level football, wasn't national team level mindset.
It wasn't. And, one thing that stands out to me from, and full disclosure, I didn't get a chance to watch the match, but I've watched enough of the highlights and the reviews. One thing that stood out to me in some of the breakdowns that I saw was it seemingly Canada would come out and be quite aggressive and quite chippy with some of our players. In particular, Christian Pulisic was getting knocked down. And I didn't see anyone kind of equalize a little bit for the U.S. When you played, if someone was getting a little rough with you, there were some goons on that team that would stand up and say,
Right.
we're not going to take that. And I think that points to the intensity, the lack of.
It looked like they were going through the motions. It looked like
Absolutely.
they were there because they had to. There was no obligation from a management perspective.
It's as
there
if
was
they
no
were told
obligation
Mauricio Pochettino wasn't watching
from a
this.
sporting perspective, but not even that because the coach wasn't even signed yet. Like, it felt like there were no ramifications if you won, if you lost, if you tied.
So you're saying they hit the autopilot button. Boop.
But was it not evident?
They sleptwalked through.
Was it not evident?
100%. 100%. And Mikey Varas did absolutely nothing to boost his stock in any way. So you look down because people will say, well, it doesn't matter who the coach was because the quality wasn't good and the intensity wasn't. Yes, I mean, no matter who's on the sidelines, if you're playing like that, you're playing like that. It's terrible. But at the same time, the coaching didn't help in any way. So,
but what are you going to do?
When I look at the whole thing, it's a massive disappointment. That's just what it is.
It's a shame.
The reality
It's a shame,
of where
really.
we are right now,
It's a wasted opportunity.
It is bad because then you go into a bigger, deeper dive and you say, how many of these guys are starters on their clubs and contributing at their clubs and having a big role on their clubs? How many?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And but how much did we think we were going to, if there was any positives to get from this, it was going to be a tangible positive that was going to be a building block for the future with an interim coach. And that's the difficult part. Like, how do you motivate a team that that this team...
It's pretty simple.
There's, on
Nico,
Tuesday...
it's pretty simple. You say, legit, if I'm the interim manager, I'm not going to be here. I can tell you that all right now. You all could be here.
You know what I'm saying? Did you hear what they said about
Pochettino.
us? Did they hear what they said about you? That's motivation. I mean, why wasn't that enough?
Do you want to play in the
light a
World Cup on
fire?
home soil?
Like,
yes or no? Do you want a coach who's an American coach who's coaching Canada, who's not even going to sing
These
the
are
national anthem,
professional
who just
athletes.
talk trash about you guys? Are you gonna rise to the level and show him who you are? Show the country who you are, so everyone can get excited for the World Cup.
Yeah.
Yes or no?
Yep.
Do you want to be here or you don't? And if you don't, I'll take you off before even the first half. If you're an interim coach, control what you can control.
Yeah.
Agree.
Seemingly, there's also a lot of pressure on U.S. Soccer right now to fix this. One, get this guy that we've been hearing about. Oh, in the next 48 hours, he's going to sign. I've heard that for the last 2 to 3 weeks. Get him. Go take your private jet to Barcelona. Get the deal done.
Who bet today?
Get it done.
You have today as the Poch day?
The other?
And Chuck?
What do you mean? It was
I
both
had
of us.
tomorrow.
Yeah, I think I had like 6 days ago. The other thing?
Oh, you owe $10 already.
Yeah, I'll put my $10 in. The next thing is figuring out what happened. The stands were empty.
Oh, yeah.
This is Kansas City. This is where you would expect the
Not
stadium
a lot
to
of
be
good
full.
feelings around the U.S.
U.S. Soccer got a
national
lot
team
to
right
figure
now.
out before the World
They
Cup
sure
gets here.
do.